All right, I am here on the Comedians of Wrestling podcast with an amazing guest, an incredible actor, a professional wrestler, former WCW champion, Mr. David Arquette. What's up, man?
What's happening? How are you?
I have to, as a big mark, I have to give you the championship nod right up top.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Listen, I've always still said it. Like when I first did my match back, they were asking me, "Do you want to be, want us to say, former WCW champion?" And I said, "Well, I was," and the whole place went, "Ah!" They
Yeah.
all laughed. It's like, yeah.
Well, it's funny because which we'll get into, but like I know it's a conflicted thing for you winning that title, and it's controversial and it caused some pain for you. But like for me, and I was probably a 15-year-old kid watching when you won, being like, what were they thinking with this? But now when I see you with that title, whenever I see a picture of you holding it, I'm like, it feels right. It happened. You know what I mean? It happened, and we need to all embrace it. You know what I mean? And I think that's what the movie, the You Cannot Kill David Arquette movie, successfully gets across. But before we talk about that, because I got a bunch of wrestling shit to ask you about, because if I don't do it, my Mark audience will be pissed off at me.
Okay.
But also, I watched Spree last night, which is now available in theaters, digital, and on demand. You can check that out. I watched Spree last night, which was actually awesome because me and my wife, during the whole quarantine, we just been watching horror movies basically almost every night.
Oh, cool.
And this like fit right perfectly into our plan. Plus, I'm friends with Sashir, and so it was great to see her in this
Yeah.
movie.
She's awesome.
Yeah, the movie was awesome. It was a real dark, twisted view of the lengths people will go to get social media likes.
Yeah, totally.
So my question for you is this, because I feel like I relate to you in this, is like when you get a role, because you play the Joe Keery's dad in it, and you're kind of like a little bit of like I don't know, not to insult you, but a little bit of an asshole dad, right?
Yeah, totally. Completely.
Do you like? How does it feel when you get asked to do parts like that? And that's coming from a guy who the last audition I was asked to do was Jersey Shore scumbag was the role.
Yeah,
that
I
got.
know, right? Oh, it's the worst. I hate
Especially because everyone
auditions.
knows you as such like a nice guy. You know? Does it
Yeah,
feel-
we did this one weird thing where we went out and we had like an improv night where we went out and Joe was filming a lot and Eugene, the director, was there. We are sort of developing our characters. It was like a bonding exercise, but it's also like behind the scenes kind of stuff we were shooting. So we were in character.
Right.
So I have kids and he'd say something and I'd think like, how I would react as a father, but then I'd like instantaneously have to twist it. Like,
Right.
how would a bad father react? So I'd give him really bad advice or like be really critical or like cut him off or like, just
Yeah.
have to make those decisions.
Like you're the kind of dad who would text his son like instead of COME CUM.
Yeah, exactly.
Literally.
Totally. Yeah,
It's got to be a weird energy to tap into, you know?
it really is. It's totally inappropriate stuff and like, not acting his age and like, oh, yeah, it's pretty
Well,
cringy.
I think people should check out that movie, especially if you're a fan of horror, because I think it was kind of a unique take on exploring what a lot of horror movies are doing now, which is exploring our the new technology we have, and like how that could be horrifying. Like I just watched
Totally.
an Airbnb horror film, then there's the Zoom one, Host. So you're like, I feel like this is like Uber horror film, which I think is really
Yeah.
cool.
No
Mixed in-
kidding.
yeah. But
Totally.
also, so you also put out You Cannot Kill David Arquette, which I thought was, as a wrestling fan, lifelong wrestling fan, I thought was amazing. I really loved it.
Oh, awesome, man.
I didn't just love it because it was like about, I kind of expected a movie about you training to wrestle and just having a match, but I thought as a film trying to capture what's great about wrestling, which is always extremely difficult. I thought the moments you had that really rounded it out, like your moments you had where you show, your friend Luke Perry taking you to the hospital, and then you wrestling Jungle Boy and you guys hugging it out in the middle of the ring, who's, if for people who don't know, that's Luke's son. That I feel like is the respect of pro wrestling that's actually kind of hard to capture on film.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
certain things in this movie just, yeah, there's a lot of tragedy. There's a lot of like intensity. It was a journey. I mean, I don't know really how much to talk about. It's always really weird to like talk about it, but
well, I mean,
yeah, I didn't know what
I just wanted to tell you that how that moved me. You know what I mean?
Oh, thank you.
Yeah,
thank you. Yeah, it was a lot emotionally, like, just as far as it went, and then just to like tap into the wrestling world. I mean, it's so complex. There's so many layers to it that I'm still like, after all this, still like, just feel like it just scratched the surface.
Right, absolutely. Because the movie ends with you. I mean, not a spoiler. It's there, but the movie ends with you being like, "I'll never be a good pro wrestler." Even after the full journey of that, like, just to have some kind of respect for the art of pro wrestling. You know, and I always call it art because I think it is. But here's another question for you. I think that you're one of the most, like, I think about you as one of the most mainstream guys who actually taps into the pro wrestling world. Like, meaning, I've heard you get interviewed on Howard Stern, and we know, like, a guy like Howard, he like, when he thinks of pro wrestling, he equates the Whack Packers, right? They love they love pro wrestling, and there's like this disrespect in the mainstream for it. So my question is, like, is it difficult when you get interviewed by people who don't really get it? Like, does that get frustrating to talk about wrestling to people who don't get it?
Yeah, totally. I mean, it's because people like, that's what always pisses me off. Like, people like write it off. So like, oh, I watched it as a kid, or that's for kids, or that's not real, or whatever they say. It's like so flippant. Like, it totally reminds me of Hollywood, and like kind of pisses me off. Like, for one, Hollywood doesn't respect wrestling to the degree I think they should. I mean, the fact that The Rock is the biggest star in Hollywood should just show you that, you know, they're talented people that do this. You know what I mean? And the fact that Ric Flair and Stone Cold Steve Austin don't have a talk show, I mean, don't have like a cop show on CBS or something, is crazy. The fact that TNT is not like putting them in some murder thing where they can like be detectives, not together, but as characters, as actors. Like, it's just, they're so quick to not give wrestling the credit it deserves. And someone like Howard saying that about it's like, it's almost like looked down upon, and that always pissed me off. So that when I became the champ, and then people started like kind of like treating me like I was like worthless, then I just like, I don't get any of this, because I love wrestling. So, and then I understand about the belt and all that.
Right.
But it also kind of crossed like lines a lot of the time.
Right. Well,
sorry,
no, listen, it is what it is, man. This is what 2020 is.
Yeah, no shit. Right?
Yeah, but like, I think that I agree with you completely. It's funny when you see John Cena 10, 12 years into being the top wrestler, all of a sudden it's like Judd Apatow discovered John Cena, and you're like, what? You're like, what are you talking about? Like, this guy, if you can, and I always say this, like, the amount of crowns you have to wear to be the top professional wrestler, if you can do that, like The Rock, you could be at top of your game there, then you could take over anything.
You have to be your own travel agent, manager, negotiator, run your own insurance, drive your own car, like set up your own booking. Like, these people just don't understand. And then you have to think on your toes. You have to be incredibly good at improv. You have to know the subtleties of all these things. The things that made, Piper so great were just like intensity in his facial expressions, and like this little subtlety in a medium that's often seen as so over the top, but it's when you can find those little things is when that becomes great. You know what I mean? And people just don't get that, and they're like so quick to like blow it off. but it's so much harder than people think to cut a promo in general. And then it's like somebody saying, like, in the movie they say, like, I was got typecast as a goofball after Scream. It's not really about all that. It's more like people just put you in a box and then say, like, oh, he does this. It's like, even after I did one episode of Friends,
Right.
I was talking to one of the executive producers, and they were talking, and I was mentioned, like, well, maybe I could come back again. And it's like, well, the other executive producer said, like, once they saw you, were like, oh, we know what that is, or something like that. It was such, like, a rude, weird, like, comment.
Right.
But it's how all these, like, a lot of people in Hollywood think. They're very narrow-minded. They're very shallow, like, and it's just, I don't know. It's aspects of human nature, I guess, that aren't my favorite.
Right. No, and also of Hollywood, it all kind of goes back to that same disrespect. But I think that's a really interesting thing about the movie, because I expected when I turned on the movie, I was going to watch you be like, I won this title. I feel like I shouldn't have won it. It caused me pain. And then I'm going to go try to right that wrong. But I also felt like the vulnerability in the movie, which I majorly applaud, of saying that it's also tied to how you feel about your relationship with Hollywood. I found it really interesting that you still chose to go back to the wrestling to heal that wound, if that makes sense. That, like, you were like, I'm going to still go back to the wrestling, even though what's upsetting me is how Hollywood sees me. And you kind of came back full circle to be like, this is what I want to do. You know what I mean?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm with you. It
I was
was
saying,
like,
did you? Yeah.
What? Do you want to?
No, I was just saying, did you feel like did you feel like what you got what you were looking for by returning to wrestling like that? Like, did you feel some kind of did that heal the wound at all a little bit with that Hollywood wound?
Sort of,
Yeah.
it did. I mean, what I learned throughout this whole process is that it was really like myself just beating myself up for years.
Right.
Not even wrestling, not even Hollywood. It's just myself, like being hard on myself or not having self-confidence,
Right.
or like, just the voice in your head, like, oh, you fucked up again, or whatever it is,
Right.
You're stupid, or whatever you're telling yourself. So I really had to, like, come to terms with that voice in my head. And then also just prove myself, like, stand up for myself. And, like, and it's, I don't know, Hollywood, wrestling, it's all this weird world. And I guess it's all just wrapped up in the world in general and how you navigate it.
Yeah.
I just knew that I had to, there was something there that was unresolved, and I had to address it. And even, like, back in the WCW days, I always wanted to prove myself. I was like, I'm tougher than you guys are, like, making me out to be. I can be more athletic than you're allowing me to be. Like, I can act a different role if you need me to, do that. But there's all this stuff in wrestling.
It's like a machine, you get in there and then, like, whatever, at the time it's like Bischoff and Russo, and they're kind of like, hey, we want to play you as, like, the meek Hollywood guy who comes in here and accidentally wins, and you're like, I want to come and look strong. You know what I mean? Which I relate to. I mean, I deadlift 300 pounds this morning. I still think I gotta have some kind of I'm not even a wrestler. I'm a comedian. But I'm like, I got, you know what I mean? If you put me in a ring, I'm like, I want to do what Shane did. I want to jump from the Titantron,
Yeah, totally. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, I learned that you could also be crazy. So that's one thing. I could out crazy a lot of them.
But it is funny because it, like, I in a way, I feel like I'm happy to talk to you because I feel like this weird kinship with you, even though you don't know me. So that's a weird thing to say. But
No.
But, like, because, like, I'm a comedian actor, right? But I love pro wrestling. So, I started this podcast, and it's unbelievable how, like, I got a lot of fans from actually embracing the wrestling. And then I put out a stand-up joke about my love for professional wrestling that went very viral. And you're like, wow, just by kind of, like, being honest and true to who I am, something that I avoided for years, it actually took me to where I wanted to go. So that's, like, where I feel like in this movie you were kind of trying to go, that I was like, man, I gotta talk to this guy. You know what I mean?
Awesome. Yeah, totally.
And there's no question there, but I'm just like, yo,
No, I know.
just listen to me, man. No.
Yeah,
You know?
totally. I
Right?
love it.
Oh,
Yeah, I had a similar experience with it all. You know what I mean?
right.
I think there's something magical about if you combine stuff you love. That's what I'm learning more of. If you like, I love making films. I love wrestling. I love performing and entertaining for people.
Right.
When you can combine different things, I don't know. There's always the secret sauce. Like I have this movie coming out, the Jackie Ryan story, and the director Danny A loves basketball. He's just always loved basketball.
Right.
You know, he loves basketball more than films. You know what I mean?
Right.
But he loves films too. But he loves basketball. So then he made this movie that combined those two things. And there's something when you combine the things you love together that is this special sauce that is.
I agree. I don't think you can really control it. Like, I think it's kind of like, as like an artist, there's a part of you that wants to go a certain way, and you could push against it. You know, and sometimes your agents, managers will tell you to go a different way that feels honest and true. And it sounds a little hippy dippy, but I don't think you can control it. Like, I think you were like bound. You were gonna be back in wrestling whether you knew it or not. You know,
Yeah,
you're bound to it. But all right. So as like just a more of a marquee question, the death match. Okay, so you know, I have my ear to the streets when it comes to wrestling, and I think the first time I heard David Arquette is doing something was that death match, which I'm so glad is completely documented in the film. I'd seen you at bar wrestling and stuff, but like. In this match, I'm curious. Did you know fully what a death match is? And for people who didn't see it, like you basically almost died. You know, you got hit with I believe a fluorescent light bulb, right? And then it kind of hit you, it nicked you. And I'm glad you're okay. Did you know that a death match would be that dangerous? Did you want to prove yourself there? Was that too far?
I did want to prove myself. I knew it was going to be dangerous, but there's a lot of stuff that happened that were like a little hard to talk about. You know, didn't kind of go right. But and there's also things. Wrestling's so weird. Like, you know, they'll say, "How's it to take the pile driver?" It's like, oh, that sucks. But they don't tell you that sucks means it's really painful.
Right.
It's gonna really hurt for months. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They're like. So I don't know. There's all these little things that I don't really know the language. It's always really hard to follow.
Right.
So I don't know. And I dive into stuff. So I jump into stuff full, all like gung-ho, like I'll do that. Like you have to learn that there's a thing in wrestling where it's like, okay, you know, there's a really good phrase. What else you got? Like when you don't want to do something, it's a way of saying like, I'm not going to do that. Yeah.
Right.
You don't want to say, I don't want to do that because that makes you look weak or something. There's all these like ego, tough guy games going on in wrestling that I just don't understand.
Right. Well, because you're not actually, you know, you're not your pedigree, right? So like you come into the culture, and wrestling has so much respect and culture around it. Like I trained for a little bit I was doing a Funny or Die comedy series where it was like a comedian training to be a wrestler.
Yeah.
And like I was in Santino Brothers, where I think you were training.
Yeah.
Right. And like I remember you came in, like I walked on the mat with my shoes on, you know, like, and I didn't wipe my feet, and I didn't walk around and shake everybody's hand. Like the culture is extremely overwhelming if it's so specific. And so I think like I can imagine you going into something like this match and you don't know how to be like, I don't want to do that, because you're like, is that disrespectful or this or that, you know?
Yeah, totally. Completely. That thing is still,
I guess I'm speaking for you.
I still feel like I've just scratched the surface. Like I'm still learning so much about it.
Right. But dude, to be then eventually like, you know, to be listed on the PWI ranking, that's pretty awesome, man. Like that was, you know, amazing. I mean, that's something not other people you're going to talk to about these movies are going to understand. But for me, like, to know you came in and you fully embraced it, threw the Scream mask on the gear, and you got it. And I feel like people respect you as a professional wrestler. That's an amazing achievement, you know?
Yeah, totally. That was a really amazing achievement. Like working with people like RJ City and just kind of Ethan Page, like people who helped show me the ropes. Jungle Boy. I mean, those guys would come over a lot and wrestle in the backyard. Like,
you set that ring up.
Royce Isaacs and all these guys, and I'd be like, I'd just be able to like, I don't know. That's kind of what I love about wrestling anyway. That part of it. So I don't know. I learned a lot, and I'm like honored to have just been able to do it, and then the Pro Wrestling Illustrated thing was like blew my mind.
It's awesome. I think like, you know, it's just, I just want to tell you, the deathmatch thing, don't do any more of those. I don't think.
No. See, I didn't know how frowned upon it was by certain, you know, branches of wrestling. Where they're just like, oh, that's garbage wrestling or whatever. I still kind of don't understand, like, okay, but you could cut yourself or whatever. There's certain things that are just like, okay, why is that different than hiding a razor blade? Like, I just don't understand. I mean,
I know, like, you can cut yourself here, but not there. You're like, what? Like, I don't know. It's like all dangerous.
I know, but it's like, I get it now. And it's part of the honor thing and the, you know, and the business.
No, totally. And I think that, like, I just want to say from my perspective, you know, that kind of stuff, like what was something that caught my attention that you did that somebody sent me was your promo at Bar Wrestling. I think before you wrestled Jungle Boy, I believe. And that promo someone sent me, I was like, this is fucking hilarious. When you were like, yo, people say I'm wrestling because I don't have any money. You know what I mean?
I got friends money, bitch.
And he's like, I got friends money, bitch. I was like, that is pro wrestling, man. Like that.
That was funny. That was just like in the moment. And I don't, by the way.
Oh, yeah. Well,
so that's especially, I mean, I have little friends.
They got the day rate.
Yeah, I got like my friends' money.
No, that's awesome. But then, like the thing, you're like, I'm crazy into pop rocks. You're like, I'm gonna drink pop rocks.
Oh yeah, pop rocks. So
that's what I'm saying. Like, there'll always be a point. Like, even if it starts getting to this place where, look, as of right now, if you don't know this, people listening, David Arquette, I seen you do clips, Hurricane Ranas, Canadian Destroyers, like real shit. At like 46 years old, I think you said that was your age when you were doing the doc. That stuff's crazy, man. Like, so. Yeah. Oh yeah, no, it's all good. But even if you can't do that stuff eventually, there's always going to be a place for that your kind of charisma, man. Like, you know, wrestling needs stick men. We don't need you to get cut with fluorescent bulbs.
I know. I was like, I want to try out for Jimmy Hart in the Hulk Hogan.
Yeah.
Come on, baby, I'm ready. I mean, I would just like to be hilarious for something.
Oh
like
yeah.
That. Although that guy's probably like at that point he'd probably be in his 20s or 30s or I don't know.
Right.
But it's like even something like that, like. I don't know. The Hollywood's so weird and wrestling's so strange. But I would love to maybe be a manager or tag team with RJ still, but I'm not sure I'm going to be doing too much wrestling anymore.
Yeah. Oh, that was what I was going to ask you. Where is the future? I mean, it felt like it was nightly. I felt like that moment in the movie. The movie was so well done. Like when your wife is dressed like Queen Elizabeth.
Yeah.
I was just like that. I was like, man, this is what I would do. This is the shit I do. I mean, I do wrestling comedy shows that make my wife come.
That's awesome.
I think just like I think I guess what I want to say is that I know, like, because you're in Hollywood in that way, I think it can feel like this stuff is shunned, like it's looked down upon because of that stuff. But there are people appreciating what's going on. And the wrestling, like you say, the wrestling world really, it's like you're saying, it's disrespected. Like Ric Flair, every rapper wants to be Ric Flair, right? The Rock's got the top selling every product you could say. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And he's a true wrestling pedigree. So I just think it's something to not be ashamed of, even though I even have moments of that too where I'm like, is this wrestling stuff hurting me? Are my friends not casting me because of this stuff too? You know what I mean?
Yeah,
but you got to be true,
Yeah, totally.
That's great. Well, I mean, Also, by the way, small thing. I love the use of throwing a Limp Bizkit song in there. The most attitude era thing that I noticed. Okay, so the one thing I had one more question about the documentary, and then I'll let you go. But everybody, make sure you check out both movies. Check out Spree. Awesome horror movie. I know we marked out about wrestling a bunch here too, but Spree is awesome. Sashir's my buddy. She's in the movie. Joe Keery is awesome in the movie. He's really great from Stranger Things. He's great in the movie. And that in theaters if your theaters are open or digital on demand. And also you can see You Cannot Kill David Arquette, which is available. I got it on Prime. My question was, you were going for a gimmick for a while of like a magic guy. This is my last question.
The Magic Man.
The Magic Man. But eventually you came back to being like, oh, I'm just kind of be myself, like literally putting the Scream mask on your tights. Like, was that a revelation you had that like I should be more true to myself? I should be me, you know?
Yeah, I mean, it was like I wanted like something toward the end, like to represent sort of, I don't know, a lot of fans that I'd meet signing, like after doing merch table, they'd be like Ready to Rumble fans or Eight-Legged Freak fans or Scream fans. So I wanted to get tights, that represented all as some of the things like that, like a little legacy tights in a way of my acting career, so that like if there was a Scream fan, we could take a picture and you could see the mask there, you know what I mean, or whatever, like just sort of combine them. And so it was a matter of like being comfortable with myself, but I did want to try a bunch of gimmicks out. I did the Candy Man where I throw out candy, come out to the song Candy Man.
That's awesome.
I was always trying to find something that worked.
It was great. Well, everybody, I can't recommend this movie enough, especially if you're a wrestling fan. It's really awesome. It's an honest, vulnerable look into David's life and his journey back to professional wrestling, and not just righting this wrong of pinning Bischoff for the WCW title, but also, kind of just accepting the fact that wrestling is important to you, and being honest to yourself, regardless of if Hollywood looks down on it, even though there's so much money in it. I don't know what they're talking about.
Totally.
But yeah, check out Spree, everybody. David, awesome, man. Thanks for coming on the podcast. We really, really appreciate it.
Great. Thanks a lot, Dan. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, see you, dude.